Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Flying with Spurts. All my recording software has been getting a little wonky lately, so I'm having to try something different. I apologize if the quality suffers. Now, before I get started on some of the important aspects of operating a Harrier, like, starting it up, getting off a ship, getting back onto a ship, navigating, dropping weapons, all that fun stuff, I thought it was important to first discover the handling qualities of the Harrier. Roll, it's decent. It's nothing to write home about. It's no F-16 or A4. Pitch, well, here's where things get a little interesting. I've not done a full flight model review on the Harrier. Maybe I will later on. Let me know if you want to see that. So I don't know where exactly the angle of attack is for best sustained turn rate. What I do know is that without having a fly-by-wire control like the F-16 and the F-18, or a direct tailplane connection to a stick position like the F-14, it becomes very hard to have a stable control in the Harrier. See, I've just went from 12 angle of attack to 18 angle of attack without moving the stick at all. So as you bleed down speed, you become more likely to stall. Now, what does the stall characteristic look like in the Harrier? I have found in previous testing that between 17 and 19 angle of attack, you really find the maximum lift. I find the lift does not decrease greatly. Instead, it just kind of flattens out once you get above 19, up through 21 to 23. I should have enough room here. Well, let me not be over the mountains. Let me get a little more altitude and get over the sea while I talk to you about what the stall characteristics of this looks like. What is that? I think I'm seeing some kind of artifact of where there's enough depth for the water. Interesting. Alright, so here we are over 12,000 feet. Stab is at 1 degree down. (109% RPM, which is roughly max continuous. (420 knots). So first, let's pull on the G. Oh, see? You saw that once I got to about 22 angle of attack, we had a right wing stall. Now if I hold a little bit of left rudder, it goes to the left instead. But it still stalls very suddenly. You just lose all lift. You stop turning. Now the real problems you get if you get in a situation where you get high angle of attack, like that, you can end up in a falling leaf departure. Oh, let's not hit the ground. Okay. Now, one of the things that the Harrier can do that nothing else in DCS at the moment can is vector its thrust. That little guy over there Tells you where the nozzles are pointed.
Caution, caution. Caution, caution.
Yeah. Caution. Now, I'm going to bring up my engine page. Because you want to make sure that you're not cooking your engines. Which, by the looks of it, I already have been. So if you're in the middle of a dogfight, and you try to vector your thrust to get a tighter turn, and maybe you're trying to go up over the top, trying to chase someone up, you're losing aerodynamic control. So you throw down a few degrees of vector so that you can get the puff port control. You're heavy. Try and go over the top. Massive angle of attack. Of course, when I want to demonstrate a dangerous condition, I can't get it to happen accidentally. Well, what I have had happen before is I get stuck at about 35 degrees angle of attack. When stuck at this 35 degrees angle of attack, I can't pull up. I can't push down. It's as if all control of the plane is taken from me. Now, I'm sure it's simply a matter of giving the right inputs to lower the nose. Maybe in the moment I was still ham-fisting the vector. I'm not the best Harrier pilot. If you want to see some great Harrier pilot flying, go to the Pukin Dogs YouTube channel, or Pukin Dog. He has some great DCS Harrier tutorials. So, while the Harrier does have some dangerous turning characteristics, it does have a few other characteristics that are simply wonderful. And it's a darn good thing that it has such good low altitude performance, because that's where I find that I end up flying it most of the time. Great. Now with the TM Warthog throttle, I have very good control over the engine RPM. And the great big engine gauge over here to the lower right of the HUD makes it very clear to see what RPM I'm at.
Altitude, altitude.
For most of my ingress work,
Altitude.
85
Pull up.
seems to work just fine.
Altitude, altitude. Pull up, pull up. Altitude, altitude. Pull up, pull up.
Stable.
Altitude, altitude. Altitude, altitude.
Easy to fly.
Pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up. Altitude, altitude. Pull up, pull up. Altitude,
Flying
altitude.
along at Apache altitudes
Pull up, pull up. Altitude.
at 4 times, 5 times Apache speeds.
Pull up, pull up. Altitude, altitude. Pull up, pull up. Pull up, pull up.
Now this type of flying characteristic makes it very easy to
Altitude, altitude.
ingress dangerous SAM systems.
Pull up, pull up. Altitude, altitude. Pull up, pull.
as you can easily get underneath their minimum ceiling if they have one.
Altitude.
In fact, you can see this demonstrated in one of my earliest videos where I destroy an SA-10 site using dumb bombs in a Harrier.
Altitude. 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 Altitude.
Now,
Altitude. Altitude.
I like flying low. This low altitude warning thing bugs me. Alt. Off. Easy as that.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull
So
up.
if you have what it takes to be a good Tomcat pilot, you can probably
Pull
make
up,
it as a
pull up.
good Harrier pilot. And while almost
Pull
none
up,
of the
pull up.
skills transfer, I just mean in the sense that you learn how to not ham-fist the controls. You learn how to be gentle with your inputs and how to slowly expand your envelope to explore the aircraft's flight performance. You get to the point where you can do that, and you can learn how to just kind of look and point,
Pull up. Pull up.
and the plane will go where you
Pull
ask
up.
it
Pull
to.
up.
The flying characteristics, along with the excellent VR cockpit, were some of the initial things that drew me to the module when I first trialed it during the very first pandemic 2-week demo period. I loaded it up, did one short takeoff off the Tarawa, came back for a shipboard rolling vertical landing, and I was hooked. Now, if I'm going to talk about handling, I should let you know, as you get higher in altitude, and with heavier weights, it really starts to handle like slush. It's got small wings. It becomes very weight sensitive. Also, handling becomes a very different story when you're maneuvering for vertical flight. Let me go ahead and put myself into that flight machine. Flaps down to stow. Trim for 11 degrees angle of attack.
Landing gear. Landing gear.
Landing gear down.
Gear.
Alright, there's my trim. I normally fly with the gun pod, so I don't know if there's something extra I need to do. So, yeah, let's put the HUD into stall mode. There we go. Now our nozzle information is front and center. As well as our RPMs and our jet pipe temperature.
Caution.
Do a quick external check. Okay, my lids devices are down. Now, we're too heavy, so we're going to dump fuel. The fuel dump system will continuously dump fuel until you reach 2,800 pounds. Now, when you're in stowable mode, you have this little bar with a circle in it, acts somewhat as your flight path marker, but also your rate of climb indicator. Rate of climb is, of course, also indicated on the middle right of the HUD. There's also this weather vane on the nose. It tells you which direction you're flying. That'll become very important once speeds get low. The HUD will stop reading at about 30 knots. Now, one of the most important things to remember when flying in this configuration is small control inputs. Let's go to the VRES page, vertical landing. So as long as I have under 3,200 pounds of fuel and water, which I have 3,200 pounds of fuel and 500 pounds of water, I can do a dry vertical landing. Given that the fuel dump will stop at 2,800 pounds, I will still have too much water, so I will need to burn off. Oh, there we go. Fuel dump is done. There we saw the switches go down. I am now just at the threshold, so I'm going to go ahead and toggle my H2O to the landing setting. Now, this won't necessarily use water for landing unless it really decides it needs to. Now, I've got my nozzles right around 60 degrees because that still gives me a good amount of forward thrust. Lets me fly around very slowly. And it's fairly stable if I let go of the stick. Right now I'm pitching up, which that's not ideal, but I go wings level. So I'm going to hold the nose on the little witch's hat, is the nose. I'm going to try to hold that on the horizon now. I'm going to shift the nozzles to 82 degrees. Which is the hover setting. Now we're starting to get slow here, so it's going to fly less like a plane and more like a helicopter. What I mean by that is while I am holding a little bit of lateral stick for the bank angle, I'm mostly turning using my rudder pedals. Now I don't like how much nose down pressure I'm having to do, so I'm going to trim some of that out. There we go. So now you see I'm moving very slowly. I'm burning about 300 pounds per minute, sorry. And with 2,100 pounds remaining, it gives me about 7 minutes of hover, or near hover, until I'm out. Now, that may sound like a lot, especially when you think that, well, that's similar to an F-16 at full afterburner at sea level. This is the landing phase of flight. Only having 7 minutes to land? Well, that's not a time crunch that the fixed wing planes have, or I should say wing-borne lift planes have. Let's go ahead and get a little down closer to the ground so we can see the handling characteristics a little more clearly as we interact with the ground. So now, much like a helicopter, I'm controlling my rate of climb and rate of descent with my throttle. I'm controlling my forward speed with my pitch, my lateral speed with my wings, my direction of flight with my pedals. Now, there's two schools of thought in how to operate the Harrier in a hover. Some will tell you to use a certain fixed pitch value and to change your forward flight by changing your nozzles. The other school of thought is to use a fixed nozzle setting and change your forward flight with pitch. I wouldn't say that either one is inherently right or wrong. Simply two different ways to go about it. Now, that said, you can turn on the attitude hold. And it'll try to keep your nose near the horizon.
Water, water. Water, water. Water, water.
Running low of water.
Water, water. Water, water. Water, water. Water, water. Water, water. Water, water.
Let's go ahead and turn this off.
Caution, caution. Water, water. Caution, caution.
Now,
Water, water.
there we go.
Caution,
Just didn't want to be
caution.
going backwards anymore.
Water, water. Caution, caution.
Hold a nice 150 to 300 foot per minute descent.
Caution, caution. Water,
And
water.
touchdown.
Caution, caution. Water, water. Caution, caution.
So while the Harrier has a few
Water,
handling
water.
quirks, shut up. Well, the Harrier has a few handling quirks that can get you in trouble if you're not aware of them. It really is fairly docile as long as you are docile. The more you violently maneuver the control stick around, especially in a hover, the more violently you will meet the ground. Small inputs, wait for a response, adjust from there. Alright, next time, we're going to do startup and takeoff. Thanks for flying with me. See you next time.